So here's a simple model, very simple, of a change process that begins with breakdowns, reconceptualizations, or in simple language, new ideas, conflict and negotiation, and selective legitimation, or in simple language, new ideas that are adopted, or social innovations. It's useful to start with the breakdowns because we're surrounded by them. And this is an interesting example, really, because the complex interchange on a freeway is actually an earlier solution to a problem about how you get traffic on and off those fast roads. So here's an earlier social innovation that you could argue decayed and caused a good deal of urban blight wherever it's being created. I don't know how many of you have been along places like Spaghetti Junction near Birmingham. You know, those places are just wastelands, and there's plenty of them all over the States as well. So this is a difficulty that has no clear solution. Like the mouse with a crash helmet? Solutions are proposed to deal with the problem. And this is, in fact, what a lot of futures people do. I mentioned Hazel Henderson yesterday. Futurists get sick of describing problems. They pretty quickly move on to rehearsing what they think of as solutions. And they're not always well thought out. And partly for that reason, a lot of proposed solutions to problems just simply get nowhere. They fall by the wayside. There's a tremendous dropout at that point. Those that have some sort of coherent, some sort of validity go on to the next stage, which is conflict. Because the old will almost always resist the new. There are very, very powerful processes of social legitimation in place to keep things the way they are. And societies do not respond on the whole favorably to people questioning those things and maybe even rethinking them or overturning them. So sometimes you can feel as an individual or a group that you are faced with overwhelming power, social power, in this case rendered in the form of a piece of military hardware. And in fact, if you go into the social construction of reality literature, which is one of the books that has been summarized for you, Social Construction of Reality, you'll see a great deal about the need to maintain the legitimation of the social order. It's a very major area. So this is what you're encountering when you bring up something new and it impacts the old. It creates conflicts. And the question here that arises is, can you move from a position of open conflict to a negotiation? So all the skills of conflict negotiation feed into this kind of work at this point. If you're interested in peace and conflict studies, it's a perfect fit with this part of futures. Selective legitimation is where something has got through that whole process, something has been selectively put in place. The idea here, for example, of an oil platform was a sort of social and technological innovation. But as it says, this is a continuous process. Things that were solutions at one stage can become problems at another. And Shell certainly found that out with the Brent Spar experience a few years ago, where something that was created as a solution ended up being a huge problem for that company. Or you can play this game looking back. Virtually everything we have around us that's culturally created is a social innovation. And here are some examples. The one I would commend to you as of particular interest, because it's so relevant to time and to futures, is actually the calendar itself. There's a great little book by a guy called John Duncan. It's published in paperback just a year or two back, so the copy should still be around. It's just called The Calendar. And what you see as you go through that book is a 1,700-year effort across a dozen cultures to get the damn thing right. This is not something that happened quickly, because at certain stages of civilization, people only had the ability to get it to a certain point, and then maybe that was forgotten, and later people came. So you find actually the calendar that we use unreflectively every single day is actually a synthesis of the efforts of people, as I say, from a dozen different cultures. And that's a really nice way into the whole topic of time, the construction of time, and the social construction of reality, which is one of the themes that makes our work a little bit different to the empirical approach. Here are some contemporary innovations. They're not all social. Some of them are technical. Carbon taxes is an interesting one. Some years ago, I was at home, and I can't remember why. I must have been unusually, uncharacteristically sick or something, but I did something I never do, which is to turn the television on the daytime. And there were these power-suited people, you know, really dressed up for symbolic battle, arguing and saying why carbon taxes would be such a terrible idea for the economy and how it would cost jobs. And I realized that this notion of using the tax system to encourage progressive behaviors, which is something we've known about for ages, it just wasn't going to happen that time round. So some issues that are really structurally important, they present at a certain time. They have their day not so much in court as being considered around the traps. They get some newspaper coverage, they might get the odd TV thing, there might be a conference. And then if they don't take, they may appear to vanish again. They may disappear for a year, 5 years, 10 years. But if they represent something structural that can't be avoided, it's a bit like the mechanisms of the unconscious, and this is the social unconscious. They will bounce back onto the agenda later. So carbon taxes won't go away. We'll see them again and again and again, and eventually I hope we'll find a way to incorporate them that the business people can actually take on board. So there are many others that I won't go into here. How about future social innovations? Wouldn't it be great if we could actually tame the global casino? That is such a waste of time and effort. It's based on utterly stupid values that you make money with money. You know what money was invented for? It was actually invented to facilitate transactions, to smooth out. The person who wanted to grow beetroot with the person who was cutting hair or whatever is meant to make exchange between people easier. But in the modern or postmodern era, money has become an abstract entity which makes more money. So you've got one abstraction piled on another, complex financial derivatives, castles in the sky that crumble because it's all an abstract fiction anyway. So recovering what we mean by money and rendering some sort of control over these crazy currency speculations would be just terrific. But unfortunately, the motivation isn't there. It suits the powerful. Everyone else just has to put up with the consequences. We are in for an awful lot of instability because change is not being directed by conscious human values or will or intention. It's being directed more by the competitive advantage that large organizations get from being ahead of their competitors. It's all about the market, and the market is not interested in the future. If you want an insight into that, I do recommend John Saul's little polemical book called The Unconscious Civilization. It too is available in paperback. Avoid, like the plague, John Saul's big books, because they will devour you and take forever. But look at that little short one, The Unconscious Civilization. I acknowledge it's a polemic, but anyway, in there are some wonderful clues about the nutty nature of the crazy nature of the system we currently live in. So lots of room for speculation, lots of room for intervention. In the area of medicine, for example, we're going to see the ability to target medical interventions precisely to each person's individual genome. So it'll be like a delicate biological lock. It won't be drugs being broadcast across huge numbers of people. And with that come all kinds of necessary innovations about how you keep medical records, who keeps them. One idea is that when babies are born, there should be a harvesting of stem cells at that stage from the placenta, and those should be kept on one side and grown and developed. Then the kid's got a source of his or her own cells for future organ replacement, whatever. So all this stuff bubbling in the background that tends to miss people, that needs some sort of careful consideration about how we handle it.